Hello students, welcome to another session of newspaper production and design with Adobe InDesign software. In this session, we are going to talk about preferences and page setup in the InDesign software. So without further ado, let's begin the video. Every software ships with some factory default preferences which are more or less applicable to all. But when we are specifically talking about a professional environment where we have certain specific works to be done in certain specific way, then at times we cannot use those default settings. We need to alter those preferences to suit the need of our job. In this context, InDesign also allows us to make certain changes to its preferences so that we can make the software work to the best of its capabilities. Here I will also like to remind you of the global and the local changes or preferences that we have discussed in the previous videos. To make global changes in InDesign, you will have to make all the changes in the preferences without opening any document. So like this interface where I have nothing open, the changes that I will make will become global changes. Means henceforth, whichever new document I open, it will automatically inherit the changes that I am making now. While if I have a document open and I do the same changes, that will become a local change and only will be specific to that particular document. And again, when you open next new document, that will not inherit the changes. So here in the beginning, we will make some global changes, and then as and when required in the document, we will be making certain changes to suit the need at that particular point of time, which will be remaining as a local changes. When we are talking about InDesign, the few things that I find very useful and somebody should really be changing are all available from edit, preferences. Also by Control K we can invoke this general. So this is general preferences, or basically going under the hood of InDesign. So in time what we do, you know how I get it. I'll show you once again, going down to edit and preferences, and here I have selected this general. But in most cases we use Control K to evoke when and as and when required. So here I will not go through each one of the parameters in all detail. Ideally you really don't need to know all that for basic information, or to, unless you are really going to make some major changes with the software, but I will stick to the most common ones. So the very first one we will look for is going down here, units and increments. Now this units and increments determine what kind of a measurement your software is going to understand. In the typing industry or in the print industry, we have different types of measuring systems. And since InDesign is a software which can actually produce content for both print medium and digital mediums, so it gives option for almost everything. So you can measure in the contents in terms of its points, picas, inches, inches with decimals, millimeters, centimeters, and so on and so forth. Now, my experience, I have found that it is easy for the students to calculate things in millimeters because they have the ruler which they can use to estimate. And you remember, in the video I already told you last time that 1 millimeter is equal to 3 point. Keep it in mind. I will keep on hammering this over and over to you till you really get it in your head that 1 millimeter is 3 points. Okay, coming back to what I was saying is, we will go to we can set this horizontal as well as vertical setup. Now you might be asking why in the ruler InDesign gives you options to make a different horizontal calculation and different vertical calculation. Well, this comes handy in the context of newspaper particularly, or print industry in general, but I will talk in terms of newspaper only, because in newspaper advertisements are sold in terms of units of column centimeter. Okay, that is when the display ads are sold in terms of column centimeter. Okay, display ads are those ads which the newspaper organization does not have anything to do. Okay, they will simply allot you or give you some space, and it is up to you what you want to put in that particular place. You want to write text or you want to put images, that the company is least bothered. Only thing they are bothered about is whether you want to use multicolor or single color, and that space is like sold to you. It's like your plot, whatever you want to do. And classified ads are those where you give the information and the company is typing the text for you. So they charge classified ads in terms of the number of words they are using to give your information. But displayed, they sell it in terms of the space that is allotted to it. It can be a very small space, very big space, but the way they measure the display ad is in terms of column centimeter. Okay, general unit is column 5 centimeter, that is one column, and the 5 centimeter space as a block, and they put a rate to this. And then when you want to buy display, you go by that number. So for that matter, sometimes keeping a different horizontal vertical measurement may be sensible, or they use it for that purpose. In a general case, for us, millimeter is fine. Now, other things that we need strokes, we will basically keep everything same. We will not touch anything here, but the only thing we will like to change is these values. That is our cursor setup. Okay, this cursor setup we will change. We will make all these values. The cursor we will make 0.1. Okay, baseline shift we will make 1. Leading and size we will make 1, and this tracking kerning we will also make 10. Basically what I'm telling my software is that when I'm using keyboard increments or keyboard shortcuts to increase or decrease the value of all this baseline shift, size of the text, or leading or tracking, things like that, it should go by increment of 1 at a time, not like 2. Because sometimes that means, like, if you are keeping it in the default, you will have font choices. If you are using keyboard shortcut, it will jump from 14, 16, 18 like that. You cannot get 15, 17 things which are in between. Okay, so it's easy if we keep it like this. So this is first thing. Next we go down to the grids. Okay, now when we come down to grids, the thing that we need to really look for is this guy, baseline grid. Now you already know what is a baseline, I believe. So baseline is the line on which the text is residing, or on which the text are sitting on. So this baseline grid is very useful, and we will be making some changes here. So generally the blue color is something that we use for newspaper in some content. So I prefer to keep this baseline grid to light gray, so that I don't really get confused with any other color. Now it is saying starting at 12.7 mm. I will not set this value right now because this is a subject to the kind of work that we are doing. I'll come back to this particular value once we start seeing the page, and I'll show you also how I get to this particular value so that my pages look nice. Now relative to page, I will not start from the top of the page. It only clutters. I will start from top margin. So wherever I am setting the margin, the baselines will start calculating from there. Okay, increment of 12 is fine, because in most cases we will be using in newspaper industry fonts ranging from, this basically talks about the body text. Huh? So we are basically looking for the setup of the body text when we are in this, because normally when we write headlines and stuff, we don't really bother much about the baseline grid. This is for the larger text volume, which is the body text. So normally body text we go by 9 or 10, and if we are going for 10, then ideally 10% should be the gap. So which will be around, like for 10, 1 would be 11.1 or something like that. So we can keep it for the time being 12, and it normally works. Okay, because this baseline includes the space before, space after, plus the leading value. Okay, so 12 is ideal for this. Now viewing threshold. Viewing threshold means below which percentage baseline will not be seen. So in general, it is saying 75%, means if your view or magnification is less than 75%, the baseline will not be seen. So I will reduce it to around 50%. Okay, so that till 50% I can see the baseline. After 50%, well, the text will become so small that anyways even I don't need to see the baseline for my design. And rest of the things I will keep as it is. I will not touch anything here. Okay, yeah, I will not touch anything here. I will always maintain grid in background. So what happens is whenever I am putting anything with a solid fill like an image or a text blocks or something like this, the grids will not be seen. I personally prefer it like this, but if sometime I need to change, I will come and I will change it here. Okay, next I am going down to this option, which is guides and paste ports. Okay, so here normally I will not change anything. I will keep it as it is for the time being. I will come to this area later, but most importantly we must change this dictionary. Now dictionary, as you can see, I am using the Middle Eastern version of InDesign. So by default it has taken the language to be Arabic. So I will change it to, my preference is UK English, so I will keep it with UK. You can go for US or whatever you are following. I will not change anything here. Okay, by the way, if you have other dictionaries, right now it is going to follow Thesaurus dictionary because that is what is the system dictionary installed in my computer. Now in your case, if you are having any other dictionary, like you downloaded Oxford dictionary or Concise dictionary, then you can add this by going to your source and add up other dictionaries also. So for the time being, I'll keep it here. Then I will immediately go to the spelling section, the next one. Okay, spelling section. Okay, once I go to spelling section, I will check all this. Also, I will check enable dynamic spelling. This means as I am writing, it will start checking for the spelling mistakes if I have some. I like to make this very similar to look like the way we have Word. So in Word, misspelled is red, repeated word is green, uncapitalized word in Word normally is Microsoft Word I'm referring to is given in light blue, and uncapitalized sentences normally is given in a dark blue. So I'm just trying to give the same color combinations that Microsoft Word uses because this is what we are more familiar with. You are free not to change, or you can change, it is up to you. Next, I'll go to this autocorrect option. Again, I'll enable autocorrect for capitalization error and the language. Yes, you guessed it right. I will go to English UK. Okay, plus some common words if I want to use, like in my case, I would like to use the word Nizwa. It is not there. Okay, just to show you, I am just saying the word. If I have something like, say, I am making NIZWA. Okay, this needs always to be converted into NIZWA. So capitalization has to be there. So I hit OK. So some other things, like for example, I am using I stay in FERC Nizwa, so I will make sure that FIRQ, FERC is always spelled right, and this is always spelled as FIRQ. This actually, as we go along, we can add to dictionary. I'm just showing you how we can make those changes. Okay, next I will quickly go down to the display performance, and here from the typical I will make high quality. Here also I will make high quality. So all these elements will be in high quality, and I will make sure Greek type below 7 will be changed to 1. This basically means that when my magnification is such where my display, say I have chosen to write a text with 10 point size, but I am reducing its magnification to a level where now the computer need to show proportionally the 10 point size font for the time being in 7 or below. So this says that if it goes below 7 point, the display will automatically start showing some hash signs. This is done to reduce the pressure on the computer processor, but nowadays most of our computers are good enough to tackle these problems. If you happen to have flickering or problems with your page suddenly going blank when you go to lowered magnifications, then you come back and change it to 7. But in my experience, I have never found this as a problem keeping it 1, so I am keeping it 1. Here what we have done, see, I have not opened any document and I have made these changes. So these all are going to be right. These all are going to be global changes. Okay, these are going to affect any document that I am going to make in using this particular InDesign software. So I hit OK, and these are the global changes that I have already made. From now on, anything I do, it will automatically be taking up these settings or preferences. So just for the recap, I will do once again. So before opening any file here or anything here, I opened my software and I'm going to edit. I'm going to preferences. I'm jumping first of all to general. Okay. From the general, I don't do any change. I directly come to first units and increments. Okay. In units and increments, I'm going to check here if this is all right. And I will make sure this area all are made 1, 1, 1, 1. Particularly cursor is 0.1 millimeter because millimeter is my scale. Baseline shift is 1 point, leading and size increment is 1 point, and tracking is 10 of 1000 ems. Then we come down to guides. We make changes to this baseline grid, but I said we will come down to this later once we are setting up the page. And we will have to adjust depending on the kind of page I am setting. These values needs to be little bit tweaked, particularly the start. Okay, we will need to tweak it a little bit, so I'll come down to this later. Only here I have changed it to light gray. It is a subject to your choice. You are most welcome to choose anything that you want. Then I went to dictionary. Okay, then here I have changed the language and I kept other things fine. I am going to spelling, and I have made sure that I am enable dynamic spelling, and some colors I have changed here to suit my choice. Then in the autocorrect, I enabled autocorrect, enable capitalization, and I have chosen the language of my work. And also I have shown you how to add the words that you want if you already know that these are the words you are going to use for later usage. Okay, now notes, track change. Remember, I'm not covering this does not mean that these are not important. They are important, but for a different context and purpose. As we move forward, time to time, I will come back and I will show you which is required and why. Okay, then the next one I moved to display performance, where I was talking about keep making this high quality. Okay, now you can also click preserve object level display setting, but that will be putting more pressure on the CPU. This basically we don't need. Ideally, the way it works is if I keep this preserve object level display setting, it will try to show all the images that you are using. No matter you make it big or small, it will try to counter or interpolate those images to always show the best. Really, we don't need it, so we can keep it aside. Adjust view settings, we are having the high quality from the typical, and then importantly we will be making sure that Greek type below is set to 1 point. And the last thing specific to this particular version, that is the Middle Eastern version of InDesign that I have installed, you will find one particular preference relating to right to left. Exactly what it does is it is trying to control the way the cursor will move when you are pressing left and right. Okay, so it is basically controlling the cursor movement from left to right. So what it has two options. One is logical, one is visual. Logical means if I am in the English language and I am pressing my arrow keys towards the left, it will go towards the left, and if I press the right side, then it will go towards the right. While in the case of Arabic, the way it will respond will be just reversed, because it is trying to follow the logical order of the way the language is written. So if in Arabic language, if you press the left arrow key, it will go towards the right, and if you press the right arrow key, it will go towards the left. If we put it to the visual, it will try to follow the direction. If you are pressing the right side, it will go towards the right side. If you are pressing the left arrow key, it will go towards the left side. Well, for our purpose, we can safely keep it logical, because the software will automatically understand, and particularly people who are using Arabic, they might find it easy. So for all practical purposes, we will like to keep it to the logical. Okay, so that it automatically understands the language used and behaves in the way it needs to. With this, we are covering all the aspects of preferences. So now I will begin with describing about the page setup. the fundamentals of the page setup. So let's start. I will go to file and I will press new and I'll go to a document, that is control and new document. Okay. Okay, I'll just cancel once again just to show you the shortcut. In place of doing this, I can also press Ctrl N and that will also bring up the same window. So let us start from the beginning. So the very first thing that I have here is talking about the document preset. As of now, you will see we don't have anything. The reason being we have not set any preset as such. Now, where does this preset comes into use? Sometimes people are using size of paper or size of design which are non-standard. As you can see in the variations that we see in the invitation cards or the flyers made by different companies for different purposes, posters, okay, then at times we also see books, particularly coffee table books. So these are different types of printed materials which does not really follow any standard page size. So for that, each time you are working with a new page size, you are supposed to make those changes, and those changes, if you are working repeatedly with the similar kind of sizes, then you can go and have your preset saved. For example, if you are working in an organization where you need to send a lot of letter in envelopes, then you can make a specific setting for size specific to the envelope that your company uses, so that you can make company logo print on that envelope and things like this. Okay, now as of now we don't have it. Maybe by the end of this session you will have one. I'll make a greeting card preset and I will show you how to save it, just for the sake of showing it. Okay, you need not do that. Now next thing that it is asking is about the intent. Intent basically means intention. It is the way in which Adobe InDesign software is asking us what is our intention, what do we want to do with this particular project or the file that I am going to open. Now it has options to have three different functions. It can make documents for print, it can make static websites. If you just want a static website, except for the dynamic interaction from the user end, then InDesign is absolutely wonderful to make a website as well. The third option that we need to see is about digital publication or digital publishing. Digital publishing means if you have interactive books, okay, like books with the audio embedded in, which are supposed to be played in the digital devices like an iPad or a Kindle or a Nook book or a Nobo or a Onyx. Presently the great one is Remarkable. Okay, so there are different types of e-ink readers or digital readers that at times nowadays is picking up in the market, so the content for them are also supposed to be made. Well, InDesign is a software which can do this from long time back. But in this course of newspaper design and production, I will be strictly focusing on the print part of it, and I will not discuss anything about web and digital publication. Okay, so once I select my intention to be print, then the next thing it is asking me what is the number of page that I want to work with. Well, here you can, if you know exactly how many number of pages you are going to work for, you can set this value here. And if you don't know, also does not really matter. We can always keep adding number of pages as we are going forward. Next one, it is talking about what is the starting number page. In most ideal situations, we will keep it 1. But say for example, I am writing a book where I have already have the previous chapter up till page number 35. So at that point, I may decide to start this particular chapter from page number 36. Okay. Now in this side, we will have two options. One is facing pages, one is primary text frame. Well, let me first tell you about primary text frame. Primary text frame ideally means if you set this, then every page you will find the text enclosed within a frame. If you want that, you can keep it. If you don't want, you may not keep it. Well, in most practical cases, we don't use primary text frame. The important thing to consider in among these four is this facing page, because facing page is specific to the books. or documents which are supposed to be binded in one side and are supposed to open only in one side. Example, books or any kind of study materials which is like stapled from one side or things like this. Ideally, you can imagine the situation of books to put it in the perspective. Now, why it is so important is because in the facing pages setup, out of the four sides of the page that we are looking at, top and bottom will be free. One side will be free to open, but one side will be binded. Either it is stitched together or it will be pasted together or stuck together by some sort of stapler or glue. And the one which is going to be stuck together, we call it inside. So basically in English, every odd page will be having its inside on the left side and every even page will be having its inside on the right side. Okay, that's exactly same thing opposite in the case of Arabic books. In the Arabic books, all the even page will be having on the left side and all the odd pages will be having on the right side because we start reading from the end. Now in this case, if your faces, so when you set these margins for these pages, you will always have to keep in mind to give some extra in the inside. So as you can see, if I click it, if I keep the facing pages checked, I get option as inside and outside. Okay, the moment my present example that I am going to work, I will not need facing pages, so I will simply tick it off. Okay, the moment I tick it off, it becomes left and right. Fine. So this is the important thing about facing pages. Next, about the paper size or the page size. In what type of paper do you want to print? So let's open and see what is inside. So in the first half, from here to here, this block, you will find the kind of papers which are commonly used in US. Like for example, US normally uses letter, legal, tabloid, half of letter and half of legal. These are standard in US, Canada, countries like that. Okay, and again these are very specific sizes which you can say non-standard sizes. These are actually being used since very long time, and the people over there or the institutions over there have adopted them, are still using it. For example, in the European subcontinent, you will find the sizes which are also called imperial British paper sizes. Okay, which will be including things like demi, double demi, okay, things like that. Important thing that I would like to discuss about is this section. Now this A5, A4, A3, all of them are standardized, and the other one we have B3. So let me tell you a little bit about what is this A size, because this is something you will find useful. At the same time, you will mostly be using the standard A sizes. Okay, so I'll just take you here. Well, A size or the standard A size, it is a standardized size which is based on the metric system. Now hopefully you know what is a metric system. Metric system, like where we start measuring everything in terms of meter for distance, kilograms for weight, and second for time. That's how we determine. It is standardized across the world. So everywhere everybody measures these standard values. So A size paper is something that is based on this standard metric system of meter, kilogram and seconds. Paper has a dimension of length, or it is ideal to divide it or start measuring it in terms of meter. So the idea behind making the A paper was that they wanted to have a size of a paper whose spread size will be 1 meter square, and that would be considered as A starting point. And then each time you fold it into half, you are actually going to make it smaller, and each of these half will be given a page number. A0 or 1 meter paper. Okay, this paper has an area of 1 meter square, so it can be folded to become A0 becomes A1 when it is folded, A1 when folded twice it becomes A2, that is second times folded, like this third time folded, fourth time folded, fifth time, sixth, seventh and eighth time. It was designed to have a area of 1 meter square, so that its into its width would be giving us 1 meter square, and the ratio of its height by weight will be root 2, that is 1.414, and all other corresponding sizes will maintain the same ratio and will be the folds of this A paper, starting from A0, which has dimension of 1189 by 841. It is defined under the standard of ISO 216, and henceforth all entire printing industry which are having to print in different shapes and sizes, for example the ones who are manufacturing printers, okay, of different shapes and sizes, they all consider this a standard paper. So here is a side note. A letter is the US standard, and it is almost same size of that of A4, a little bit wider, a little bit shorter, okay, and legal is a little bit taller than A4, just to note, okay. And different size of the papers, you can check it from here. For example, our A4 paper is 210 by 297 mm. Now I will give you a quick tip to remember the way I remember. A4 size is 200 plus 10, that is 210 by 300 minus 3, 297. That's how I remember, okay. So A4 paper is 210 width by 297 height. We will use this very frequently, and if you know just A4, then you can derive out all the different sizes, okay. Maybe in some other discussion I will go into detail of that. For the time being, this was important for me to explain you this. And 2 points to remember: A paper is the standard and based on metric system, and each of the A, along with that, it has a number, and this number tells you how many times the A paper is folded. For example, if it is A3, then the A size paper folded 3 times. If it is A4, the A size paper folded 4 times, and similarly 2, 5, 6, 8, etc. You get the idea. Going back to our InDesign. So with that, the paper is out of the way, and you can also give your custom. If you don't want to use this, simply you can set up your own value and you can start your own work. This we will do in today's exercise as well. Important thing to note here, this side orientation. Orientation, it supports both landscape orientation. Landscape orientation, you can see the image is sidewise flat, so it indicates it's a landscape, and this one is a portrait orientation. So you will have to decide how you are going to make the particular document layout, okay. It is laying out as a portrait or it is laying out as a landscape. And the most important and crucial thing, which becomes very important to note, particularly when we are working with this Middle Eastern version, if it's a North American version or international version, this option does not exist, which is called binding. Okay, you will not find this option. You can find or you can make changes, but not exactly in the document setup. You will find it in the paragraph styles, inside paragraph styles. Okay, we will get back to this later. But importantly, in this particular version, since we are working with the Middle Eastern version, we will have to make sure that we are choosing the right binding mode. Here you can see this side is binded, this side is open from the little icon. Here you can see this side is binded, this side is open. So this is actually binding on the right side. So this is supposed to be read from right to left. Okay, this is the binding on the left side. So it is supposed to be read from left to right. Since we are dealing with English, we will always choose this unless we are specifically going for working with other language, that is Arabic. This portion, it talks about columns. Okay, so how many number of columns you need in your design? Well, in most newspaper cases, if it's a broadsheet, people use 8 or 6 columns, and if it is a tabloid or A3 size paper, people use normally 5 columns. Right now in this present example or exercise, I will not use any column as such, so I will keep it 1. Since column is 1, gutter does not have any sense here. Gutter basically means the space between 2 consecutive columns. So in this exercise, even if you take any number, does not matter. So I'm not going to touch this right now. And then finally, we are up with this margin setup. So margin setup, we will make sure this link icon is on. Okay. So if I don't have this on, okay, if I take it out, okay, then I will have to change each one of them separately, like 10. Okay, then see, they are not changing. But on the contrary, if I keep it on, then the moment I enter say anything like 11 and tab, it automatically commits this. Well, please note, like any other Adobe software, okay, do not press enter unless you are done with filling the entire document setup, because the moment you press enter, you are actually invoking this OK button, so it will go. So if you are trying to set up a page and you really want to move from options to options to options, the ideal way is to set it with pressing tab. So for example, I come here, as I said, I will make a custom size. So I will make it something like 150 by 210. Okay, this is the size that I want to make my greeting card in. Okay, two more options are left. Let us quickly see this also. Now, if I go to more options, it opens up a small section which is talking about the bleed and the slug. So let me explain also what is a bleed, what is a slug. So first of all, bleed. Bleed is that part of the margin which is normally used when you want to bleed your image or your content from one corner of the paper to another corner of the paper. You don't want to have any margin in that particular content, like the cover page of a book. Normally the cover page of a book, you will not find any margin. It is printed from corner to corner, right? Or the magazine, you will find it is printed from corner to corner. We don't see a white border around it in most cases, right? So this is done by using these bleed options. Ideally what it does, you set your bleed a little bit more than the size of the paper, and then you make sure your image that you want to use as a background or the color that you want to use as a background is spreading across the bleed. Why so? Because during the time of printing, when this colors are, you know that printing is done, not all are printed in one go, right? In actual printing jobs, in offset printing, the same paper is printed 4 times with 4 different colors, that is cyan, magenta, yellow and black, and they need to like print exactly on the same points in the paper so that the print looks very nice. Otherwise it looks a little bit blurry. But when the paper is running or when the paper is printed, normally the number of prints are very high, like for example 10,000 copies, 100,000 copies. So it is quite possible that because of the rotation of the machine, sometimes the papers move a little bit left and right, very tiny amount, maybe in millimeters, but they have a tendency to move. But a millimeter itself is around 3 points. So we actually try to keep this bleed area in such a way that it counts for this 0.3 millimeter area, or in printing industry they say quarter of an inch, which is a little bit more than 3 millimeter, which is 3.17 something millimeter. For our use now, I will keep it as 3 millimeter. For general every use, you can keep the bleed to be safely 3 millimeter and that should be fine. So bleed is just to make sure that the registration of the colors in the paper is always accurate and right. Even if the paper moves a little bit left, right, up, down, the cutout area is always correct. In most cases in the printing industry, you do not print on the paper of the size that you want to print it on. For example, if I want a A4 printout by the end of the day, I will not print on an A4. I will print on any paper which is a little bit bigger than A4, and then I will cut it out from that paper. So if I am printing a book cover, then probably I will print it on say book cover for this thin paper binded books. You will see they are a little bit smaller than A5 because most of them are printed at a size smaller than A5 and then cut out from an A5 paper. Okay, so understand the concept that you print on a little bit smaller size on a paper which is a little bit bigger so that you get space to cut it out. The reason is no printer in this world is made which can print without holding the paper. Okay, if it rolls through the page or the drums, wherever it is, it needs to hold the paper from 2 sides or sometimes 4 sides. Now if it is holding, at least you will take a margin area of 0.5 millimeter in case of laser printers and thing, the smaller printers, to up till almost 1 centimeter in the case of industrial printers. So that is the problem. We cannot print from the edge of the paper to around 1 centimeter, 0.5 to 1 centimeter area, and that is the reason we need to print on a size which is a little bit bigger so that we can cut the paper out of it. Okay, if we are looking for a printout which should look like a bleed, means end to end the paper should be having some color, there should not be any border visible after we make the production complete. And the last term comes from the advertising industry, which is called slug. Slug is basically document related information. Say I'm working on a particular document and my client is continuously giving me email or updates. So I can copy that email and paste it in the document itself. So it's like a metadata. It will travel with the document as long as it is in the project format, like a InDesign project file. And when I am printing it out anyways, I am not going to print an InDesign file. I will only print the output. So when I print an output, it will not have any information of the slug or the bleed as such. It will be simply printing out the area that needs to be printed. So slug is a inbuilt space for taking on-job notes, you can say. So in this case, I can give a slug just to show you. I am giving a slug, top, left, right, I will not touch. I will only give a slug in the bottom, say around 15 millimeter. Okay, so with this I will have my page setup ready. Quick recap, I kept it intent to be print. I unchecked facing pages, number of pages 1, and I started with page number 1. Since I changed the dimension, so it automatically became custom. And here I have this dimensions. I have given my own dimension, which is non-standard again, so it has taken it to be custom. I made sure the orientation is a portrait orientation. Binding is from left to right. Columns I am using 1, margin 10 millimeter, bleed 3 millimeter across all sides, and slug is 15 millimeter at the bottom. So now you remember I said that document preset, we will create one. So now I can save this preset and say I call it greeting card. This is my greeting card preset. So I will hit OK. And immediately from now on, whenever I open this machine, I will have one greeting card preset ready for me. And that's how the preset works. So now I will hit OK to open up a fresh document with the setting that we have specified. And here this red line is representing bleed area. Black one is the size of the paper. This pink line is the margin, and this purple lines designate the column guides. If we come down to the end, this light blue color is representing the slug, and that is the reason while specifying the color for the baseline, I have said we will be changing it to gray because it will be conflicting to this color. So we will begin with our exercise in the next video. Till then, be safe, remember to follow all the guidelines and keep practicing.